The silence in the room was thick, a heavy blanket that smothered the usual hum of the city outside. I sat there staring at the faded photograph, the edges worn and softened by time, and a wave of bitterness washed over me. It wasn't just the image itself, a snapshot of a younger, more hopeful version of myself standing proudly in front of the shop, but the story it represented. A story of years of relentless effort and a betrayal that still stung, sharp and raw. The air in the room felt stale, thick with the weight of unspoken resentments, the echoes of promises broken and dreams shattered. It wasn't merely a memory. It was a visceral experience, a reliving of the moment the foundation of my world crumbled. My stomach twisted, a knot of anxiety tightening with each passing second, and a dry, metallic taste filled my mouth. It was a taste I had come to associate with the feeling of being utterly and completely disregarded. Our family business, in its initial state, was a far cry from the thriving enterprise I had envisioned. It was a cramped, dimly lit corner store, struggling to stay afloat in a sea of competition. And my parents, hardworking and well-intentioned, were trapped in a cycle of barely making ends meet, their dreams of a comfortable life slowly fading with each passing year. My childhood was interwoven with the rhythm of the shop, the constant flow of customers, the clatter of the cash register, and the scent of old wood and dusty merchandise. It was a life of sacrifice, of long hours and meager rewards, but it was also a life filled with a sense of purpose, a feeling that we were all in this together, fighting for a better future. The financial struggles were a constant undercurrent, a looming shadow that cast a pall over our family life. Indeed, there were times when we had to forego basic necessities, when the fear of eviction loomed large, and when the weight of uncertainty threatened to crush us. Even as a child, I saw the untapped potential of the business, the hidden possibilities that lay dormant beneath the surface. I remember the exact moment, standing amidst the chaos of a busy Saturday, when the vision struck me. This shop could be more, so much more. I began to immerse myself in the workings of the business, learning every aspect from customer service to inventory management, from sales techniques to financial planning. My early efforts were, of course, clumsy and naive, filled with mistakes and missteps. I learned from each failure, each setback, each missed opportunity, and I grew stronger, more determined, more resourceful. I spent countless hours in the shop, working late into the night, sacrificing sleep, social events, and even my own personal dreams. There was a sense of deep satisfaction in seeing the business improve, in witnessing the tangible results of my hard work. My brother, on the other hand, was a stark contrast, a living embodiment of carefree indifference. His interests lay far beyond the confines of the shop, in the fleeting pleasures of social gatherings, the mindless distractions of video games, and the endless pursuit of leisure. He was a master of avoidance, skilled at shirking responsibility and delegating tasks to others. There were countless instances of his laziness, stories of missed deadlines, broken promises, and blatant disregard for the needs of the business. My parents, for reasons I could never fully comprehend, tolerated his behavior, always finding excuses, always making allowances, always shielding him from the consequences of his actions. "That's just how he is," they would say, a dismissive phrase that masked a deeper, more troubling dynamic. As I worked harder, the resentment grew, a slow burning ember that threatened to ignite into a consuming fire. My childhood was far from idyllic. Our house, a small, cramped space above the shop, was always filled with the sounds and smells of the business. My friends were few, as my time was largely consumed by helping my parents. The neighborhood was a mix of working-class families, each struggling to make ends meet, and the sense of community was strong, a shared understanding of hardship and resilience. School was another arena where my work ethic showed. I was a diligent student, always striving for excellence, applying the same dedication I showed in the shop to my studies. My parents' relationship was a complex tapestry of love and struggle. They were devoted to each other, but the constant financial pressures often strained their bond, leading to arguments and disagreements. The shop, in its early days, was a testament to their perseverance, a symbol of their determination to build a better life for themselves and their children. They faced numerous challenges, from fierce competition to dwindling customer numbers, from rising costs to unpredictable market fluctuations. The daily routines were grueling, a constant cycle of stocking shelves, serving customers, and managing finances. Customer interactions were a mix of pleasantries and complaints, a constant negotiation between meeting needs and managing expectations. The shop evolved slowly, with minor renovations and gradual improvements, each step a testament to my parents' unwavering commitment. As I entered my teenage years, my involvement in the business deepened. I began to learn the intricacies of running a retail operation, mastering the skills of sales, marketing, and customer service. I learned by doing, by observing, by asking questions, and by making mistakes. I implemented changes, small at first, then more significant, streamlining operations, improving efficiency, and enhancing the customer experience. There was resistance, of course, from my parents who were accustomed to their old ways, but I persevered, demonstrating the value of my ideas and the tangible results they produced. Taking on such responsibility at a young age was both exhilarating and daunting. I was driven by a sense of purpose, a desire to make a difference, but I was also plagued by doubts, fears, and anxieties. There were moments when I felt overwhelmed, when the weight of responsibility seemed too heavy to bear, but I always found the strength to push forward. I realized gradually that I was more capable than my parents at running the business, that I had the vision, the skills, and the drive to take it to new heights. My brother, meanwhile, remained steadfast in his indifference. His irresponsible behavior was a constant source of frustration, a recurring theme in our family life. There were incidents of missed appointments, unpaid bills, and broken promises, each one adding to the growing list of his transgressions. His relationships with his friends were a reflection of his own lack of direction, a circle of individuals who shared his penchant for leisure and his aversion to responsibility. His psychological motivations were a mystery, a complex mix of entitlement, laziness, and a deep-seated fear of failure. The divide between us grew wider with each passing day, a chasm of resentment and misunderstanding that seemed impossible to bridge. The years that followed were a blur of relentless work, a constant cycle of innovation and improvement. I immersed myself in the details of the business, researching new strategies, implementing new technologies, and exploring new markets. The process of introducing online sales was a challenge, a steep learning curve filled with technical hurdles and logistical complexities. I spent countless hours learning about e-commerce, building a website, and developing a marketing strategy. Expanding the customer base required a multifaceted approach, a combination of targeted advertising, community outreach, and exceptional customer service. Each success was a validation of my efforts, a tangible reward for my hard work. I felt a sense of deep satisfaction, a feeling of accomplishment that fueled my drive to push even further. The recognition from my parents was a mixed bag, a combination of praise and subtle undercurrents of reservation. They acknowledged my contributions, praising my intelligence, my work ethic, and my dedication. Yet there was always an unspoken rule, a cultural expectation that the eldest son would inherit the business, regardless of merit. This unspoken rule created a sense of unease, a feeling that my efforts, no matter how significant, would ultimately be overshadowed by my brother's birthright. I tried to ignore the subtle signs, the small moments when my brother was favored, the dismissive comments that downplayed my achievements. I told myself that my hard work would speak for itself, that my parents would ultimately recognize my value. But deep down, a sense of unease lingered, a premonition of an impending betrayal. I clung to the illusion of security, convincing myself that my efforts would be rewarded, that my parents would see the value of my contributions. I used psychological defense mechanisms, denying the reality of the situation, rationalizing my brother's behavior, and clinging to the hope that things would change. There were subtle signs that my brother was still the golden child, small gestures, casual remarks, and unspoken preferences that reinforced his favored status. A growing sense of unease gnawed at me, a feeling that I was being taken for granted, that my efforts were being undervalued. The concept of the golden child was more than just a family dynamic. It was a reflection of societal pressures, cultural expectations, and deeply ingrained biases. My parents' love for me was genuine, but their actions were often guided by tradition and expectation. There were countless moments when my brother's mistakes were glossed over, when his failures were excused, when his needs were prioritized. I saw the difference in their treatment of us, the subtle ways in which he was favored, the unspoken messages that reinforced his sense of entitlement. The moment of the announcement was etched in my memory, a scene frozen in time. We were gathered in the small, cramped living room above the shop, the air thick with an unspoken tension. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the worn furniture, and the silence was broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. My father, his face etched with a mixture of discomfort and determination, cleared his throat. "We've decided," he began, his voice heavy with the weight of the words, "that your brother should take over the business." The words hung in the air, a devastating pronouncement that shattered the illusion of fairness I had so carefully constructed. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence, and a wave of disbelief washed over me. "What?" I managed to stammer, my voice barely a whisper. "But I've been the one running everything." My mother sighed, a weary sound that spoke of years of unspoken compromises and unresolved conflicts. "He's the eldest," she said, her voice soft but firm. "And, well, you'll find your way. You're smart." The words echoed in my ears, a hollow reassurance that offered no comfort, no solace. I tried to reason with them, to plead my case, to make them see the injustice of their decision. I presented the facts, the numbers, the years of hard work, the undeniable evidence of my contributions. I spoke of my vision for the future, my plans for expansion, my dedication to the business. But my words fell on deaf ears. My parents, their minds made up, offered only vague justifications and empty platitudes. They spoke of tradition, of family obligations, of the natural order of things. The conversation was a blur of emotions, a chaotic mix of anger, frustration, and despair. I felt powerless, trapped in a situation I couldn't control, betrayed by the very people I trusted most. My brother, meanwhile, watched from the sidelines, a smug smirk playing on his lips. He had won, not through merit or effort, but through the sheer luck of birth order. His reaction was a slap in the face, a cruel reminder of the injustice of the situation. I felt a surge of anger, a burning desire to lash out, to scream, to break something, anything. But I held back, knowing that any outburst would only reinforce their perception of me as unreasonable. The days and weeks that followed were a period of intense emotional turmoil. My relationship with my parents was strained, marked by awkward silences and unspoken resentments. I felt isolated, adrift in a sea of confusion and betrayal. I questioned everything, my own worth, my own judgment, my own place in the world. Doubts gnawed at me, whispering insidious questions about my abilities, my intelligence, my future. There were moments when I felt utterly defeated, when the weight of the betrayal threatened to crush me. But I refused to give in to despair. I clung to the hope that I could find a way to rebuild my life, to create a future on my own terms. I started to accept, though not fully, that this was my new reality. Within months of my brother taking over, the business began its precipitous decline. His lack of experience, his indifference, and his reckless decision-making quickly took their toll. He mismanaged inventory, allowing shelves to remain empty while overstocking items that didn't sell. He alienated customers with his poor service, ignoring complaints and dismissing concerns. He made impulsive financial decisions, spending money on frivolous purchases and neglecting essential investments. The impact of his actions was immediate and devastating. Employees, frustrated by his incompetence and lack of leadership, began to leave. Customers, dissatisfied with the declining quality of service and the dwindling selection of products, took their business elsewhere. Suppliers, concerned about his erratic payment schedule, began to withhold deliveries. The once thriving business was now a shadow of its former self, a testament to my brother's ineptitude. As the situation deteriorated, my brother, rather than taking responsibility for his mistakes, began to blame me. He accused me of not preparing him adequately, of withholding crucial information, of sabotaging his efforts. His accusations were absurd, a desperate attempt to deflect blame and avoid accountability. He projected his own failings onto me, denying his own incompetence and refusing to learn from his mistakes. His psychological motivations were transparent: projection, denial, and a deep seated fear of failure. The emotional impact of his accusations was profound. I felt a mixture of anger, frustration, and a sense of vindication. I wanted to scream, to expose his lies, to prove his incompetence. But I held back, knowing that any reaction would only fuel his attempts to deflect blame. I wrestled with the internal conflict of wanting to help and knowing I shouldn't. There were moments when I almost intervened, when I felt a pang of guilt, a sense of responsibility for the business I had built. I saw the pain in my parents' eyes, the growing realization that they had made a terrible mistake. I felt a surge of compassion, a desire to alleviate their suffering. But I reminded myself of their betrayal, of their decision to prioritize tradition over merit, of their willingness to sacrifice my hard work for the sake of their misguided beliefs. I watched as the business crumbled, as the years of my labor were reduced to ashes. It was a painful experience, a slow, agonizing process of witnessing the destruction of something I had poured my heart and soul into. Yet, there was also a sense of vindication, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that I had been right, that my brother's incompetence would ultimately lead to his downfall. Why do some people receive everything on a silver platter, while others must claw their way up from the bottom? How does a system of inheritance built on tradition justify the dismissal of hard work and talent? Is it truly fair to prioritize birth order over demonstrated ability? These questions swirled in my mind, a constant reminder of the inherent unfairness of the situation. I grappled with the broader themes of fairness, justice, and meritocracy. Was the world inherently unjust, a system rigged against those who dared to dream? Was my experience an anomaly or a reflection of a deeper societal problem? I explored the role of family dynamics, the unspoken rules and expectations that shape our lives. How do these dynamics influence our choices, our beliefs, our destinies? I analyzed the psychological impact of unfulfilled expectations, the emotional toll of betrayal, the lingering pain of injustice. I delved deeper into my own feelings of inadequacy and self doubt. Had I done something wrong? Was I not good enough? Had I somehow failed to meet their expectations? The process of questioning my own worth was agonizing, a relentless cycle of self criticism and self pity. I replayed the events in my mind, searching for clues, for moments when I could have changed the outcome. Had I been too trusting? Too naive? Too willing to sacrifice my own needs for the sake of the family? There were moments when I questioned my own sanity, when the reality of the situation seemed too absurd, too illogical, too cruel, too cruel. I wondered if I was losing my grip on reality, if I was imagining the betrayal, if I was exaggerating the injustice. But the evidence was undeniable. The scars were real, the pain was palpable. The journey of self discovery was a difficult one, a process of confronting my own vulnerabilities, acknowledging my own limitations, and ultimately finding the strength to move forward. Even before the formal announcement, there were subtle indications, whispers in the wind that foreshadowed the impending betrayal. My parents' behavior, their casual remarks, their unspoken preferences, all hinted at a decision that had already been made. There was a sense of unease, a feeling that something was amiss, that the ground beneath my feet was shifting. The subtle changes in my parents' demeanor, the way they looked at me, the way they spoke to me, all suggested a hidden agenda, a secret they were keeping. I felt a growing sense of dread, a premonition of an impending disaster. I had a feeling something was wrong, and I couldn't shake it. The way my brother acted, the increasing arrogance, the slight grins, and the small comments he made all spoke of something he knew that I did not. There were small comments he made that implied he had a future with the business and that I was just helping out until the time came. I began to see that I was being set up, that my hard work was being used as a stepping stone for my brother's undeserved success. I was being used. There was a growing sense of mystery, a feeling that there was more to the story than met the eye. I felt like I was missing something, like there was a hidden layer of complexity that I couldn't quite grasp. I wanted to know the truth, to understand the motivations behind their decision, to unravel the mystery of their betrayal. I felt like I was trapped in a puzzle, searching for the missing pieces, trying to make sense of a situation that seemed utterly incomprehensible. I knew that the truth would eventually come out, that the secrets would be revealed, but I didn't know when or how. I felt like I was on the edge of a revelation, a moment of clarity that would shatter my illusions and expose the reality of the situation. There was more to the story, and I was determined to uncover it. The collapse of the business was swift and brutal. Within 2 years, the shop that had been the heart of our family, the source of our livelihood, and the focus of my tireless efforts was gone. The doors were shuttered, the shelves were empty, and the dreams we had all shared were reduced to dust. My brother, true to form, faced no consequences for his actions. He simply packed his bags and moved away, finding another job, leaving behind the wreckage of his incompetence. There was no accountability, no remorse, no lesson learned. He escaped unscathed, leaving me and my parents to deal with the fallout of his irresponsibility. My parents, faced with the devastating consequences of their decision, never apologized. They never acknowledged their mistake, never admitted that they had chosen poorly. Their silence was a deafening indictment, a final act of betrayal that cut deeper than any spoken words could have. It was as if they were willing to let everything burn rather than admit they had been wrong, that they had valued tradition over merit, and that they had sacrificed my hard work for the sake of their misguided beliefs. Guided belief. Their refusal to acknowledge their role in the disaster was a final crushing blow. I was left with nothing. The business I had built, the future I had envisioned, the recognition I had craved, all gone. I could have succumbed to bitterness, to resentment, to despair. I could have allowed the betrayal to define me, to cripple me, to destroy me, but I refused. I chose a different path. I decided to start over, to build something new, something that was entirely my own. I channeled my anger, my frustration, my disappointment into a fierce determination to succeed. I learned from the experience, from the mistakes of others, and from the lessons of my own journey. I built my own business, one that I controlled, one that no one could take away from me. It was a long and arduous process, filled with challenges and setbacks, but I persevered, driven by a burning desire to prove myself, to prove my parents wrong, and to create a future that was truly my own. Sometimes the people we expect to lift us up are the ones who hold us down. Sometimes the families we believe in turn their backs on us, choosing tradition over merit and sacrificing our efforts for the sake of their own misguided beliefs. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away, to sever ties with those who betray you, and to build something of your own, something that is strong, resilient, and unshakable. Because in the end, the real power isn't in what's handed to you, it's in what you create with your own two hands, with your own sweat and tears, with your own unwavering determination. It's in the ability to rise from the ashes of betrayal, to rebuild your life, and to create a future that is truly your own. It's in the strength to forgive, but not forget, to learn from the past, but not be defined by it, and to move forward with courage, with conviction, and with an unyielding belief in your own abilities. So tell me, have you ever been betrayed like this? Let me know in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, don't forget to like and subscribe, because trust me, there's a lot more to talk about.